All right. Welcome to Bitcoin Treasuries with Mehdi and Joey with Belgravia Hartford. I'm Tim Kotzman, and we're here on the live stream. How's it going, guys?
It's good. Thanks for having us, Tim.
It's going
Absolutely.
well. Thanks for having us, Tim.
Yeah, happy Thursday. It's August. It's rolling into Q4, before we know it, but obviously still a month and a couple weeks away. Um, Mehdi, I don't know if you want to kick us off. I know there's a few specific topics that you kind of wanted to cover today.
Yeah, I mean, first, I think this is officially our first time talking. Delighted that you've taken the leap and come on as an advisor. I think this is a huge step for us. I mean, all the stuff you've done in the last 2 weeks. I mean, the people we're talking to and uh, the connections, the introductions you've made, the discussions. Certainly, we couldn't do it without you. So, first and foremost, thank you, A, for your time, your efforts, your vote of confidence, and believing in our process. And really, really grateful to have you, your ambassadorship, and your support.
Absolutely. No, it's been exciting and really fun to work with you guys and kind of have all the conversations you need to have and plot the way forward. So really enjoying my time here.
Okay, thanks.
We're just trying to give Joey, the floor in case he has anything in his heart that he wants to share.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Tim. Boy, what a couple last few weeks here. But yeah, I mean, this is exciting. It's an exciting time in Bitcoin, as always. I mean, Bitcoin's going up, so everybody's got to just stay patient and zoom out, as they say, and just look at the charts. Um, but yeah, this is great. I'm really happy that you've decided to come aboard and help us raise as much money as possible through your relationships and really help us on the investor relation media side. So
So
thanks, Tim.
enjoy one comment. I mean, when I look right now, there's, at times I've become pretty guarded and understand that you got to shield. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of opinions out there, and it's important to understand what's facts, there's a lot of loud noise at times, and everyone's opinion is important. It's good to navigate. You know, I mean, people are saying, I read some comments, there's all the pessimists are coming out that Bitcoin had a bad month. We're at 112, 113,000. We're 7 or 8% off the all-time highs of an asset that's worth $2.5 trillion. And there are sectors that are struggling for liquidity. That is not the case here. There are number of other companies I could speak of that would give anything to be in the situation that we're in. Of course, when there's a lot of fast, rapid movement, it does create a lot of emotions. And it's the last week of summer. There's a lot of people who take time off. We're certainly pounding the pavement. Look, I would love to see, yes, Bitcoin higher and our stock price higher, but I also see the massive opportunity. I also see that, smart institutional investors are not talking to us because they're looking at the MNAVs, they're looking at the market opportunity. It's a reset, it's a pause. Uh, that's what the market does. It pauses, it creates volatility. Volatility, Joy, you love this quote from Michael Saylor. Volatility creates vitality and liquidity. Um, I think we got to be grown-ups and look at valuations and understand things go up and down. And we're comfortable. We have 14 million bucks worth of Canadian, so call it 9.5, 10 million Bitcoin US, 83 Bitcoins in our balance sheet. We're comfortable where we are. This is a good ground point for us. Uh, it's always looking at the opportunity that's ahead of us and taking out the emotions. Yes, my money's down. Our investors are down on their holdings, but where do we start from? What happened in the last 2 months? How do we compare globally to all the other companies in the space? What are we doing differently? Are we active? Are we proactive? Are we speaking to our investor base? Are we educating? Yeah, we're doing all that. We're doing all the textbook right things for a public company. It's not my first rodeo. It's not your first rodeo, Joey. And Tim, you've seen it. Some companies may go under the bunker and kind of weather this out. We're going to be in your face. Call us, email us, write to us. We're here. We're here. We're open for business. I'm not afraid of this, and tough times bring out the best in us.
Yeah, just to correct the quote from Saylor, I think it's volume plus volatility equals vitality. So in efforts to get our volume up, I mean, the uplisting was big for us, for sure. I mean, albeit it happened in the midst of a micro bear market within the Treasury companies. So maybe we haven't really felt the volume from the uplisting, but it's progress to NASDAQ, and that's where the big volume is. It's what we
Yeah.
need.
Look,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think that we continue on the path that we're on, which is we are raising money from high net worth individuals, family office via private placement. And in time, Mehdi will guide us to the best path to NASDAQ. I mean, we trust in him. Yeah, I mean, he's been at the helm of this company since 2017. So he's definitely been through, the ups and the downs with it.
Look, 2013. Thanks, Frederick. I mean, look, one of the paths when, like yesterday in the Canadian markets, there were very large bids. Tim and I were on the phone with one of your banking contacts, and as we're talking, ironically, there was a very large bid that showed up at Belgravia, and now you're seeing it, right? You're seeing that bottom percolation. I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. The charts definitely are showing that. To those that panic, look, it's their money, it's their opinion, and people have every right to do what they do. To investors that see a bottom, they see, one on a technical, right? You look at the technical run, there's a time to buy and there's a time to sell. We're not investment advisors, so we can't give opinions, but they're technical investors that look and say, this does look like a bottom. It may most likely be the bottom. If it's not, then there's another bottom, then another wave comes in. But as a company, we just have to weather every storm, ride the momentum, and be prepared for that. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad we're actually taking this head on. But as a company, as officers, directors, management, we're married to the share price because of our obligation, our fiduciary obligation to perform and do well. But our biggest obligation is actually doing what's right. It's innovative financing, creativity, bringing in new people, working with better minds. And we're doing that. I mean, every day, Joey bombards me with 100 messages to talk to all these incredible people and to all these ideas. And, you know, Joey's always had that path where he's always fishing, he's always talking, he's always doing this. And some of these ideas go nowhere, but through one of those ideas, we come up with an excellent idea. And I'm thankful for that, Joey, because you're always thinking, different ballparks, different arenas. And, that's what makes us special. I mean, we have that balance that a lot of other companies don't. So, you're the one
Yeah,
who
thanks, buddy.
introduced.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, look, even the call this morning, little far-fetched, little crazy ideas, but amazing though, right? I mean, that's such a innovative ideas. I mean, we could talk about all that, right? Uh, Maybe talk about some of the stuff behind the scenes we're doing. I mean, we're talking to so many people. I'm dehydrated all the time, but maybe talk about that end of the business that you want to explore. We may do it, we may not fully do it, but it's something you're exploring.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the mining is the backbone to the economy, the Bitcoin economy. All the Bitcoin in circulation and the rest to come into circulation will all had been done so by via mining. And as everybody knows, and if you don't, we have a pool or we have a mining pool. We invite you to check it out at pool.blgvbtc.com and tell all your friends that mine, hop in there and start mining. But we also recognize that there's a barrier to entry to mining as a result of having to buy hardware and come up the learning curve come up a learning curve. So there's some alternatives to buying the hardware, which is called cloud mining. So we think that, yeah, I mean, we're exploring opportunities to develop really neat mining products for Belgravia. So I think that's really exciting, and stay tuned for updates there. Yeah, I'm not sure
Well,
if we should talk too much more about anything else there on the mining front, but if
well, it's
anyone
something
has
we're
any questions,
exploring.
I'm
Look, I
happy to
mean,
answer them.
we won't mention who we were talking to this morning, but we had a very innovative call this morning. I was very impressed with, the content of the people this morning and what they've done, what they've accomplished. And, it's those creative ideas that are going to be the next phase for the sector. So having conversations like that this morning kind of really opens our eyes and saying, what have you got to do? How do you stay ahead of the curve? Um, we're exploring, right? I mean, we're exploring every idea out there from, yesterday's call to what's the fastest way for a company to be on the NASDAQ. I think that's what our shareholders want. That's how we attract the institutional shareholders. That's how we attract, proper banking groups. What are we doing to get there? We're
Yeah, Tim, you've had I mean, you have your ear to the pavement more than anybody, arguably, in the Treasury space, and it seems like the $100 million market cap is the sweet spot, or maybe not the sweet spot, but the threshold to be considered. Maybe not Nasdaq, but just in general, that number seems to be the number, and below that, it's very difficult to raise money, and you're considered very micro caps. So, um, a friend of ours who actually has a Bitcoin treasury company that's about to go public um, has this idea that sailors may seed a few, or strategy should seed a few of the micro cap or smaller treasury companies, and maybe they do behind the scenes, and I'm not privy, but I thought it was an interesting idea. Um, but
Well, I mean, that's the evolution, right? Where, let's look at, from my background, when I look at, let's say resource companies or tech, they will go and invest in a junior company because the upside, there's a multiple there. There's a delta that's attractive. I don't know if we're there. I don't know if the compressed MNAVs will create that. Uh, Tim, your insight on the street and your due diligence in the boardrooms, uh, do you think that day will come when, major companies will say, we're going to explore X number of dollars and go innovative? Or what's the point? I mean, that's an excitement for the retail industry. That's an excitement for the retail market. Do you think we'll get there? So maybe I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, a large amount of the discussion around market cap of $100 million to $1 billion actually took from one of the Sailor interviews where he was talking about something in that range to really be in a strong position to launch preferred products. So I think a lot of the conversations that I've been hearing, revolve around a lot of what you guys have mentioned as far as being creative and how to move the ball forward from one listing to an up listing, or to kind of to the next level. So um, I think everyone in the space that can just keep looking forward and then have the next level up in the price of Bitcoin to help them along the way, um, will be well served by staying disciplined and all the obvious things. If you have Bitcoin, which is a volatile asset, then if you have an equity that's Bitcoin based, it's going to be volatile as well. So you have options traders. In some of these equities, you have other short term players that are making a lot of noise, and I think some of it is, how much time are you really spending just doom scrolling every single day, and is that helpful or not? And certainly some of it might be to just get what the sentiment is of the day, but um, you know, these markets go up and down like a roller coaster, and you know, kind of protect your mental health, do your research, and move forward.
I'll say, at 44 years old, I've been, I worked in 2008. I worked for an investment company. I was a mutual fund. I was doing, general institutional type sales, and the market was crashing. And the parent company of the company, it was a Fortune 500 company. Our stock was at around $105. So this is what, 16 years ago, multi-billion-dollar company, and these wide global calls, and they're like, no employee of the company is allowed to short the stock. Fine, but then somebody yelled out, "Could we buy puts?" Um, and I remember it was nobody's immune to it, and stock went from $105 down to $3, back to 30, up to 100, and at that time, I remember I was sitting, I was like, I feel like the world was coming to an end, but all it was I had more risk in the market than I had more capital. There was nothing else. And I believe there's a generation of really good investors right now. They're very savvy, they're very intelligent. They haven't experienced long drought bear markets. They haven't experienced, you know, catastrophic events in the market. And right now there's nothing wrong. I mean, MicroStrategy is doing incredible. I mean, how could anybody even question that? I mean, companies in the Bitcoin treasury business where they were 6 months ago. Matt, I mean, you just named them all. I mean, there's no point in going to it. I mean, let's look at a long-term perspective and where we were and where we are right now. So again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't doom screw 'em. I don't go down that. I know what's out there, but I also know that I got to deal as a CEO. We got to deal with regulators, audit, existing shareholders, game plan, financials that have come out. So there's a lot of that you got to manage. And the market sentiment, yeah, we respect it. And they're going to be there for us when things turn. And, you could buy, sell, or short. I mean, that's their three options. So, and the market always in the end prices you accordingly. So uh, I'm an advocate of that. I mean, you're always priced where you need to be. Uh, and let the noise just be noise, right? But we have an obligation to do what's best for the company and shareholders. And, to our estimate, I mean, we've delivered, we've done everything we said we were going to do, and we're going to continue doing it. I think there's a big urgency on speed, and it is important, and it is important to move fast. And, you know, you could only move as fast as the market allows you to move. So when the market does give, when these shareholders are so passionate and they're behind you and they're supporting the deal and they're in the market, that's what allowed us to create the momentum to go and do what we did and attract the funds and so on. And that'll come back again. I could see it very vividly. Uh, Bitcoin's not even volatile. So if I maybe root him and correct that, I think, going from 100 to 124 to one, I mean, these are just general movements. You look at, the S&P 500, if you look at the volatility of, the top 30 companies, are they just as volatile? Yes. There's macro events that could on any day trigger that, tariffs, so on. Uh, I think volatility is just part of life right now. There's 100 million investors that are actively trading, and you could take a sell order by accident. Somebody does a market order in a large size, and it could have an effect. But then to that, there's somebody in there buying at a cheap valuation. Uh, you know, I don't know. I feel the best is yet to come. I mean, I'm very eager and anxious to get to New York for September 17th. I feel like this is when there's going to be some deals happening. You're going to be the rainmaker, Tim. You're going to be you're going to have some secret handshakes in the back, and there's going to be deals announced, and you know that's what usually happens, right? You get entrepreneurial, creative geniuses in a room, and they're all going to want to do a deal. So maybe you've started something you don't even know yet.
I was on the phone with Tad Smith, and he said that the event will be a fulcrum event for Bitcoin treasury companies. So I hope that that's the case, right? Bring everybody together, and everyone should, shake everybody's hand. I think that's like the community part, right? Not just online. Part of the like opportunistic, to use that word. I mean, as much as I have my arms around it, when you would hear the sentiment of Sailor's always buying the top, and and he even said, right, I'm going to be buying the top forever. I think with some of those convertible instruments, the best time to really issue them is when the price was running up. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of was what it was, and maybe moving forward, with some of the preferred products, it'll be different and better, maybe more evenly distributed, maybe not. But yeah, it's not always the case that you can just run in a straight line or run on the treadmill every single day. You have to, to your point, Maddie, be opportunistic, be strategic, do your research, do your homework, see what opportunities are out there, and then strike when the opportunity is there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's it. I mean, what does Warren Buffett say? You buy when there's blood on the street. Uh, I think right now there's just, it's end of summer. There's a lot of emotions. There was a lot of, June and July. There was a lot of excitement, and the market naturally does what it does. And you know, it's evident that there's going to be another path again by now and the end of the year. I mean, we saw it in October, November, prior to the election. After the election, we saw the first wave. If you go look in, there was a lot of companies that had a big spike in November and December. Uh, that was the first set. Then there was a bit of a pause as spring was very quiet. Then May, June, July, we experienced what we experienced. And now again, it's another little quiet phase. Uh, the savvy investors understand. And, you know, now with technology and the amount of money and how rapid things work, bear and bull markets, before they happen in long durations. Now you could have a bear and bull market in 2 months. You could be in and out of that so rapidly. Just the velocity of the market right now is incredible. Before it would take 6 months to get to certain heights and 6 months for a correction and sell off. Now, I mean, people trading on their phones while they're driving. Before you had to call your broker. I mean, back in the day, it would take 2 weeks to get a settlement and to get your capital. So the velocity of the market is there. We've experienced it on both ends, and now it's the next wave. I mean, I'm optimistic because I just understand the cycle. Um, but again, it goes back to human psychology. There's people on leverage. There's people that have overbet their hands in the sector, and that is and that is a common event. But as a public issuer, as a public company, where we have a lot of legal obligations, we got to focus on our mission. Uh, that's why it's important for good investment advice, good counsel. Following the rules. Um, I mean, I know it sounds a little boring at times, but that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, did you want to dive into one or two other topics? I think you wanted to cover the royalty asset a little bit, or anything else on your list there?
Yeah, for sure. One also on the day we announced your appointment, we got uplisted to the QB. And very bravely and very aggressively we're trying to leap up and to go NASDAQ right now. So those are the conversations that we're having, and that's the next path for us. So that's, I think, that's a big one. So yeah, the royalty. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, and understanding the history of Belgravia. So Belgravia is a holding company. We don't have a back end business. We don't have any operational business. Uh, what we've always had is we've had revenues that come from our investments. One of our investments uh, that we had was a fertilizer asset that we sold to a private equity firm in New York. We got $2.8 million US back in 2017, and we hold a $12.2 million royalty. Kind of like reminds me of GameStop, exactly what happened, where, it was a little tiny company and it had a big hedge fund shorting their stock, and the community really got behind them. So there's 12 million bucks that were owed, and it's a royalty that was never monetized. And what was very attractive was there was a water pipeline, and the water pipeline was supposed to generate royalty. And we've been working with lawyers through legal channels. There's been setbacks, ups and downs, hurdles, but that was a few years ago. But now we're at a point where things always have a way of aligning. And we're going to make a presentation about it. We're going to talk about it more openly. But that's $12.2 million of undilutive cash injection to Belgravia. It may happen, it may not happen. So I got to be very cautious about that. It may be less, it may be more, but that is an investment. That is an opportunity that we have that I've been working on for the last 4 years. Once it's announced, we're going to take all that money and buy Bitcoin with it. And that's something that, again, differentiates us. So I'm excited to announce it when it happens, but I just want to say I'm very actively working on it. We have a really good legal team that's working on it. And once we monetize it, I think that's going to give us a big, big spark.
Awesome. Joey, anything to add or anything on your list?
Bitcoin per share is always at the top. I'm curious to know your thoughts around, and the rest of the guys from True North, what they think about Bitcoin per share and how MSTR's Bitcoin per share, I think, is up 53%, either year to date or year over year, and how that correlates with the stock price. Or does everybody just feel like, these Bitcoin backed stocks are not correlated really with Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin, or there's some lag there, or like how do you guys see that? It's like what do you I'm trying to kind of get my arms around the pricing metrics.
Yeah, the True North stream last night I was not on, but I did listen to it, and the theme that I was hearing is that um, to be really thoughtful around guidance on what you may or may not do around uh, certain MNAV thresholds, because you can't, like, you as a management team are not controlling the MNAV, meaning you're not controlling the sentiment of the market. The market's going to do what it's going to do. So um, yeah, I'd encourage everyone to go listen to that True North episode from last night. No, it's only over 2 hours long, and Sailor retweeted it. But also, at the sake of plugging the conference, most of the True North guys will be there in New York on the 17th of September. So I think that'll be a good opportunity to like take everything that we're hearing online on these live streams and these spaces, and hear the most updated version, and talk about the things in these sessions that are the most important to people in real time, and live, right, in person, and then we'll obviously live stream it as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to talk to all the guys there as well. It'll be a great opportunity to learn a ton for sure. So nice work to you and Ed for pulling this off. Hats off to you guys.
We just got the invite today, the after event invite.
Yeah, so
Nice.
the night before and the night of, pub key, 7 p.m. We're gonna hang out there, and yeah, that'll be great. It'll be really, really, really great.
So we wanted to have you on our Spaces call. So I mean, this could be a segment. I mean, we can make this our Spaces call. I'm going to post this on the X page. As you kind of went back about the MNAV, yeah, nobody can control it. I mean, how can you control it? How can you control your valuation? I mean, it's the markets are free trading market, and I mean,
And
now it's
nobody
just,
has better Bitcoin than anybody else.
yeah, it's a very
Talk
good
about
point.
an
Yeah.
equal playing field. We're all trying to raise money to buy the same Bitcoin, which is great. I mean, it's really a competition of who can creatively come up with ways to raise the most money, and or vacuum Bitcoin and create ways to accumulate Bitcoin. So hopefully the pool is that for us, and that drips Bitcoin into the treasury over time. Yeah, and over time, we're going to keep creating good products. I think all of us will. All of the treasury companies will, over time, naturally have a suite of products, well, whether it be insurance products or banking products. Um, yeah, so
I mean, it's
we're
the
focused.
innovation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we're focused on trying to get as much. The Bitcoin per share is got to increase, and we know that, and we're working hard to raise money to buy Bitcoin while it's still on sale.
Yeah. Um, and the market, like, I'm just a firm believer market, it was overbought and now it's oversold. And when it balances out, when the market was at it was running, a lot of the bankers and a lot of the typical institutions we're talking to, I remember Joy, one of her first calls, we were told, well, your MNAV's too high. I can't touch it. Uh, and that was the top of the food chain. Now the question is, the argument is from, well, your MNAV is really low. And now we're having conversations like we're having, Tim and Joy, like with people where they're trying to take advantage of that low MNAV. Uh, so, our shareholders know, when they start buying, it gives better opportunities. I guess I'm not worried because I know how this will pan out. You know, there's always that inevitable rebound. And as Joey said, we're all holding the same Bitcoin. It's not like we're developing, one pharmaceutical product or trying to go for a physical asset in different jurisdiction. Our Bitcoin's the same color as your Bitcoin. And and that's the best part. It's 125, 130 comes around again, and it's a whole different argument. It's a whole different sentiment. And the X page will shift. And today I saw something.
Wow, he's leaving us in suspense. We're gonna have to get him back to see what Mehdi saw today. But no, he's back. All right, we'll bring him back in here.
Sorry about that. Somebody wrote, and you never insult anyone's intelligence, but it's, there's people, I guess they call them bashers, and there's like, oh, Bitcoin's going to this and that. And that's, yeah, everyone, they come out. But I think we're too busy. We got to block that out. I mean, you got so many calls and emails, and we're talking to so many people at the same time doing things that you got to block it out. B, you got to look at where the money flow is going right now. And we have a commitment to our shareholders to do what's best for the company. And my over the last decade of understanding capital markets is, when it's too good, be calm. When things are bad, be calm. Always be calm. It's a very famous Robert De Niro himself as a person. He said, I think he says, I've seen a lot of people come and go. When times are good, be calm. When times are bad, be calm. Just always be calm. And I think humility and calmness is very important right now. And we're all students of the game. We all look up to Michael Saylor and the road he's paved. And he's probably one of the smartest investors in the last century, and for what he's done. And if anyone criticizes him or because he's had a bad month, you got to take that with a grain of salt. Let's look at what he's achieved over the last decade, and I guess throughout his entire lifetime. He was successful before Bitcoin. So, it's a bump in the road. It's not even a bump in the road. I mean, Bitcoin's down 7-8% from the all-time high. Just for the treasury companies, yes, it's been extremely painful for us. Uh, but the good ones know how to navigate. The companies that know how to navigate, you know, we're going to navigate. We're going to be just fine.
Mehdi, do you want to talk a little bit about putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet and the fact that, I mean, you didn't really like come out of the gate with a megaphone. It just kind of happened naturally and quietly. And tell me if I'm mischaracterizing anything, and kind
Yeah.
of what that journey was, what that experience was.
So, do you want me to go back 3 months, 6 months, or 10 years?
We've got time.
All right. So 10 years ago was 2017. I said, look, we're going to buy crypto assets and we're going to buy blockchain assets. And, the company was transformed from the mining company to the holding company. And it was called Belgravia Capital. There was no Hartford. And we had invested in some miners that actually didn't do well at all. I think they were private companies and maybe lost a lot of money there. And there were regulatory questions that came from auditors, CSC, so on. Everybody's just like, all right, this is a new industry. How are you going to how are you going to manage it? There was just thousands of questions, and we realized, okay, we can't do what we said we're going to do. So as the years went on, we still would passively invest in, blockchain companies, and crypto and Bitcoin were not hot from 2018 to 2020. It was just it was a drought. But in 2020, 2021, I started looking at it again, and again, didn't make a move at all. But it was in 2024 where, you know, this is where I say I talked about this openly, where Bitcoin created us. Because of Bitcoin, we're here. It's not that we chose it because it was a trend or it was a thing to do. No other asset gave us the impact. So last summer, when we were raising money, we were looking at obviously our royalty. We were looking at monetizing that. Market was stagnant. And the last year, when we brought in round 13, we raised a little bit of money. We had a subsidiary to look at ways to, trade various cryptos, look at uh, early stage asset. Again, market just didn't care. I mean, a little bit of excitement for a day or two, but there was nothing there. And it only came in mid-May. I was at the conference in Toronto, Considium conference, and I was speaking to, a well-known guy, and he said, look, you love Bitcoin, you talk about it. So why isn't your corporate agenda all about Bitcoin? And I think it was just that, Joey talks about it. When you swallow it organically, it's not about reading, it's not about a chart, it's not about anything, it's about understanding it. So it was about mid-May where I realized there is no other asset that we can adopt or get behind. Traditional infrastructure, mining, all of that, physical mining in the real world, uh, it's difficult. So therefore, I said, look, we're just going to buy Bitcoin. I went to round 13. I said, I need to raise money. I need a line of credit, and we're going to take everything we have and buy Bitcoin. So we bought 4 Bitcoins. That's how it started, 4.83. Um, then we had a couple $100,000 in the bank for G&A costs, and these were money for audit, legals, all that. And we just went and bought another 1.5. So we bought another 200,000 Canadian. So now we have 6.5 Bitcoins. Then the stock starts to move, and I drew down a little bit more from the line of credit. Then we bought another 9 Bitcoins. So now we're about 15 or 16 at the time. And now the market's excitement's picking up, the momentum's picking up. And I'm getting calls from other, companies in the space in Toronto and Vancouver saying, look, we're going to do the same thing. And I'm like, go ahead, start buying Bitcoin. We had a healthcare companies say, look, we saw what you did. We're just going to use Bitcoin as our treasury. We're not going to be a treasury company, but rather than keep cash, we're just going to keep Bitcoin. Great. Um, so, mid-June, the market's moving. We're talking to a lot of retail investors. Joey, took a lot of personal time, came to Toronto, understood, the concept of what we're doing, and said, look, let's get really behind this, and we can market this and raise a lot of funds. Um, and as the stock was moving, we elected to purposely take less equity and do more of a convertible because we don't want to dilute the shareholder base. So we raised 4 million Canadian right away. We took all of that, bought Bitcoin. We didn't pay anything yet. Any Not even 1 cent went to cover even the mailing costs, G&A costs, legal, nothing. Everything 100% and more into Bitcoin. Then we raised this 5 million US convertible, again 100% Bitcoin. So since the beginning of June 5th till now, every time any money has come into the company, we've just plugged it into Bitcoin, and it put us on the map. It's allowed us to have these great conversations. We saw the first run, we saw the pullback, and now we're preparing for the next one. Preparing, how do we raise max dollars? How do we buy the most amount of Bitcoins? And if Bitcoin goes up, great. If it goes down, we'll find a way to raise more money and buy more Bitcoin. Uh, like I'm 100% all in, adopted. There's no other way. I can't look any other way. Uh, and that's how it started. I mean, it wasn't about us going to some fancy investment funds and bankers and saying, look, this is what we want to do. It was the only thing we could have done. And I believe, that was the big spark for a lot of companies, like MicroStrategy. Well, they had 500 million. I mean, they plugged in 500 million. For us, it was 500,000. Um, but it was the money that we had to deploy to Bitcoin. And once you're in it, once you're doing it, now I understand why there is nothing else. Now I understand why you can't entertain, and there's times, I talk to people in the industry about, companies going public, or, you know, general guys or gals giving their investor pitch, and you realize, man, that's a lot of work. You got operators, you got people sitting there building this and that. You're going to spend all your money building a business, and in the end you still have to go raise more money to get revenue. So the more Bitcoin you buy, the better you're off. And I think it was somebody in one of your podcasts that said buying Bitcoin is like buying real estate in New York, decades ago. I don't know who said that, but I read it somewhere. It was I think it was one of your guests or one of your speakers. uh, yeah, I mean, we're the example of how the Bitcoin standard revolutionized our company, allowed us to raise funds and attract people like Joy, like yourself, and our shareholder base. We couldn't do that with any other asset. We couldn't do that with anything else.
Joe, any thoughts on any of that or anything to add?
No, I thought that was great. I think it was Saylor that said, and maybe he was the first person I heard say, but I don't know who maybe had coined it prior to him. But yeah, Bitcoin being like digital Manhattan, like 21 million blocks, like actual blocks or buildings, if you like, in cyberspace. Yeah, no, that was really well said. Yeah, I mean, look, we're a Bitcoin backed stock. Bitcoin happens to be the best asset ever, and it's extremely affordable still, and it won't be for long. So, um, we're going to continue to do what we can to raise money to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. I know I sound like a broken record, but we feel like we're well positioned to do that through our relationships. And um, yeah, so we're excited about the future and excited about September 17th. Um, yeah, really, really cool to have Sailor come and talk to all of us. And it'll just be a really great, informative learning opportunity. So super
Uh,
pumped about that.
And I'll say one thing: since we started this, we've been buying Bitcoin every month, and the plan will eventually be to buy Bitcoin every week, and the plan will be to buy Bitcoin every day. But we're now finishing 3 months. So if you look back in a reflective 3 months, yeah, we did everything. And the next 3, 4 months is we got to expedite. We got to go from buying every month to buying every week to buying every day. That's going to be the plan. Uh, we'll get there. It'll take a little time, but we'll get there. Uh,
In 3 months, I think the company went from like a $4 or $5 million valuation to maybe 50 or $60 million valuation, back down to $20 million valuation. So maybe not everybody thinks that's fun, and I get it, but it's turbocharged Bitcoin. So, it cuts both ways, as they say. If you want something that flies in the straight, then yeah, I mean, it's got to slow down hard in the corners to pick up momentum and speed again in the straight. So, like, and if you don't want that, then, buy a T-bill, buy something that doesn't move around a lot. So,
there was a, you know,
and
you know,
I would just add to that Bitcoin's since I'm class of 2016, I would say. I mean, I know I've heard about Bitcoin way before that, but I don't remember the first time anyone ever told me or I heard that word. But since I'm class of 16, I'd say that um, primarily it's been traders that traded daily, like bots, kind of, right? Like these algorithms that these guys set like really structured trades, and the computer does it for them. So I feel like those guys obviously set, not obviously, but it feels like to me that a clear path for them would be to aim their algos at the treasury companies and start bot trading the treasury companies. So I don't know, but it is volatile and it's healthy.
And there's
I would
short
say it's
traders,
healthy.
the short, it is healthy. Yesterday was an example when I saw, the big bids come up, and I'm like, are these shorts that are covering? Are these just long investors? But again, it goes back to investor psychology, human psychology, you know, understanding where, as Joey said, where were we 3 months ago? And, you know, I look at all the charts and I follow what a lot of these companies are saying and doing, and the charts all look similar, little traces here and there. Uh, and it comes back to, and I think everyone has executed, everyone is executing and stacking up. And, you know, this is where you separate the wheat from the chaff. This is where the quality, especially for small companies, especially for companies of our size, I mean, our persistent, our determination, it's showing and it'll show. Um, and we're putting our faces and heads and names and reputation out there on a daily basis. So, I think 2 weeks ago we delayed our spaces call by 12 hours or 24 hours, and there was a bit of an uproar, and the stock went down a couple of cents, and I think everyone's busy, and we had something come up, and I think there was a technical issue with one of our phones and Wi-Fi, and but we're here, we're transparent. I mean, I'm going to post this, and this should be our spaces update rather than our regular call. Uh, But yeah, I mean, I'm pumped. I'm motivated. I've been through a lot of bad markets. I've been through a lot of rough times personally, professionally, and you just come through it. You just focus and you come through it. And what I find, it's a funny stat. People who bash online, odds are they don't actually own your stock, because if they did, why would they? Why would you? I mean, maybe it doesn't make any sense. They probably sell and they bash, which is fine. Um,
Or they're
and
shorting it.
Or they're but look, it happens all the time, and I mean, these kind of chatters and communication. Most of these are, the reputable posts that I see. They have their name, their identity, their positions, and they're very transparent. The ones that are very colorful in their comments, who I haven't even checked in the last day or so, they have they're not even identifying themselves. Tim, you put your name, your reputation, your job, your address. Joey, you put your name, your family name, where you live, your city. We're the ones that are actually signing off on financial statements. We're the one who are actually sending letters with our promise to regulatory bodies. And people go out and they say, they question if, you know MicroStrategy has their Bitcoin, yet he's got the top audit firm in the world working 365 days auditing them. And yet somebody is questioning if we own the Bitcoin or this and that. And meanwhile, people need a lesson in capital markets, need to understand how the audit system works, and need to understand what, every 3 months, what the regulators, what the listing agencies, what they ask you to perform and do. Uh, it's a pretty grueling process being a public company. You go through audited financial statements. You know, uh, they ask you for everything. If the font on one document's different from a document, they can question that. And these are the things that we put up with. And I think the average public market doesn't understand that. The level of scrutiny in the last decade that's gone to making public companies transparent is extraordinary. That's why you see a lot of people, they just fail. They just walk away. Companies become stagnant, they go to zero, they walk away. I'm proud of, what we've done. We've endured good and bad times, and we keep pushing. I mean, Joy talks about his grandfather. When he came to America, I mean, look what he built. I mean, Joy, I think you got to talk about that. I mean, your family's history in the American business world and what you guys have done over the last century. And, you know, sure, your grandfather went through so many tough times, and especially as an
Yeah, for
Italian,
sure. Yeah. I mean, any family business, anybody that's been in business a long time, you just have to go through one cycle of any economy that you're in, and yeah, I mean, you'll know if you're cut out for it or not. It just so happens to be that Bitcoin moves so fast, and these treasury companies move even faster than that, apparently, than BTC, that yeah, I mean,
It's a derivative.
you need to be trained, you need to be calloused and seasoned for it. I don't know. I mean, right, no question about it. Like, my great grandfather came here in 1900, in the 1800s, he came to the States and he started our business in 1906. So, yeah, I mean, can't imagine the ups and downs to stay in business 120 years. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's like, I believe that those crazy lows, the 70% off Bitcoin is over with. I just don't see it happening. It's too big to slide that much. So at least it's de-risked for those that, had the puke button. But for those of us that are okay with it, we're used to it. 10% move is nothing, like we don't feel it. $115,000 Bitcoin is fabulous. It's really tremendous. Um, so it sucks to see these companies starting with Sailors get hammered and get punished for his guidance. But at the end of the day, they're performing phenomenally. The Bitcoin per share is way up. They own so much Bitcoin. It's just phenomenal. People get so wound up in today's price because the conversation's all wrapped around these metrics with today's price of BTC. But if you were to look forward, a forward-facing P&L, 12 months, 24 months, you'll then see that what's happening is smart and and as they say, accretive. It's what you as a shareholder of a Bitcoin treasury company would want. So anyway,
I
yeah,
got a
Jim,
question.
coming back to that is, why, when you saw the rise of the Bitcoin treasury is you couldn't get the kind of alpha, you couldn't get the kind of returns holding Bitcoin in a 2, 3 month span. So the treasury companies really became a commodity. They became a derivative, a very, you know, times 100 derivative. And it happened so fast. And now they're being recalculated, repriced. The companies are reorganizing. There's more money. It's just there's a really big gap of where we were, where we went, and where we came back. Um, the mania, maybe mania is not the right word, but the next wave will have more substance. It'll probably be a little slower, and it'll happen again just naturally because Bitcoin will go up. And again, Joe, I love what you said. We all hold the same Bitcoin.
yeah,
So the
and we're all
markets,
getting
yeah.
priced and recalibrated in real time. I mean, so Tim, what was your
So
question?
Go ahead, Betty.
no, it makes sense to really regroup and for doing that. And you know, I haven't been as focused on the commentary out there, but I know Tim, you're active, you're out there, Joe, you're very active on the space, you're seeing it. It's just that's not what makes or breaks a company, you know. Uh, really good investors, when they see valuation, see charts the way they are, you know, it's there's always going to be for every buyer there's a seller, and for every seller there's a buyer. So uh, I'm not worried about what people say out there because I've been through a lot of this, and it's just we just got to keep doing what we're doing. Winners don't complain.
I like that. Winners don't complain. Medi, do you remember, or can you talk a little bit about how many people over the years are tuned into an earnings call traditionally, back when you were just in the traditional real world mining space or other investments, right? A public company, you have a quarterly call, and I imagine it was, a dial-in sort of call. Or can you talk about that a little bit? And my
Yeah,
obvious point probably is like, we have hundreds of people watching a live stream. Was that the experience back then? Hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people.
no, I mean, I'll speak about Canada. It's you went out and you paid extra fees to the business wires and the news network agencies, and you put on webcasts, and it wasn't like this. You didn't have this kind of technology. I mean, you dialed in and you were lucky if, you told a bunch of people to dial in and the share it just when the financials went out, people always read, the headings and they look at it and they dig and they're like, okay, great. But there wasn't this kind of attention. The reason why there's this kind of attention is, Michael Saylor and, strategy, they revolutionized and they've done something that's changed the landscape of, hundreds of companies, the capital markets. There's a lot of all the eyes and spotlights on them, right? I mean, uh, but in the end, I mean, and they report so transparently in what they've done. It wasn't like that in the past. And, for Canadian companies, it was you reported what was factual, you did what was there, and people just didn't care. They cared, but they weren't logging in and waiting until 4 o'clock until your call came in. They read the financials over a course of time, and because everything was so much slower, the industry was slower. Let's talk about general, physical mining. It would take 6 months for a project to advance a little bit. For biotech companies, it would take 2 years for FDA approvals, or any sector, things would take such a long, transparent time. Here, we're not relying on you know, humans to do anything. We're relying on the price of Bitcoin. Then the human aspect is what we do, what we raise, and so on. So our core entity, we're not in control of it. We're not in control of operations of the price of Bitcoin, but we are in control of the deals that we do, the people that we talk to, and how we engage, and our energies, and how transparent we are. So yeah, right now, I mean, the attention that goes to earning calls is it's like a movie premiere opening. And I remember I used to follow Netflix quite closely, and I couldn't understand. You know, they would go around the world and build their model, and they would get so many people as subscribers, and every quarter that's all the market cared about, how many subscribers they had, and they kept losing money for so long, but they kept growing their subscriber base. And that to me was so fascinating, because there was a couple of quarters where they missed, and they still had what, 20, 30, so many million viewers paying $10, but they would miss by a couple thousand and the stock would get hammered. And I just didn't understand that. And I never understood how, and then naturally, they recovered and they made all-time highs. And I think same thing here, you know, strategy puts out the greatest, what was it, Joey? What was it that you said that it was the greatest financials reported by one of, I mean, there was
I
some,
mean,
what was it? What did they
it
do?
was their greatest quarter ever. I
But
mean,
where
and
did
it
it
was a
rank in all
massive.
the S&P companies? Where did it
I mean,
rank?
massive. Like it feels like top 15. Somewhere in there. Like I mean, it was an incredible quarter in the history
Yeah.
of capital markets in America.
So the market wanted more, or it cools off, it corrects, and on their next quarterly, when does it do? In 2 months right now, or uh, the market will pick up again. I mean, they buy in rumors, sell on news. I mean, that's what it is, right? So, and I think here we're seeing it even more. Um, I do also believe there's a lot of derivative and shorts and all that's playing into the market right now. And uh, so forgive me if I'm not as worried, because it's an opportunity right now. This is an opportunity, and yes, we're cognizant of all shareholders. Look, I mean, I own north of 16 million shares of Belgravia. Shareholders that we've brought in that have paid 25, 30, 40, 50 cents, and they have millions of dollars locked in. So, that's our focus. We're building a company, and we're going to have was a bad month. It was a horrible month. Yeah. I mean, I look at the statements, the conversations I have privately with friends and family. They hear it, and they're my sounding board. But it's going to be a good end to the year. I'm very positive about that.
Any additional closing thoughts? Maybe we'll wrap it up here. We're just over an hour right now.
What's the dress code for the 17th? Orange ties, and
Yeah, just
Joey and
bring
I got to
something.
stop wearing black.
Nah, black's great. Just bring something orange.
Okay.
But black's great. Black's New York black, right? Everybody looks great in black clothing. It's stylish. It's simple. It's yeah, all good.
Okay. Well, all right. Thanks for your insights, Tim. Joey, thanks for always pushing me and always coming up with. I mean, I'll say one thing. All these ideas, Joey. One of them is going to be better than what anyone's ever had. So, I mean, that's what you've always done that in your career. So, you're always pitching. And
Yeah, thanks, buddy. We got to raise the money. We
Yeah.
need more Bitcoin. So, yep, onward.
we will.
Thanks very
Okay.
much for having us, Tim. Always a pleasure seeing you, buddy.
Yep. We
Thanks,
will
guys.